Hello there, extraordinary people. Welcome, welcome. It's a blustery but sunny Friday lunchtime here in Sheffield, in the UK. I'm out on Deliveroo, Ubereats and Hungry Panda. Friday lunchtimes are normally quite brisk. People are kind of getting started for the weekend. And I've got my first order in, didn't take too long. It's going to a pizza place not far from here. Okay, cheers. Alright, let's get off to this first order. I was ready when I got in there. This was sort of 5 pizzas I'm taking. Seems like the classic kind of Friday lunchtime treat for employees by a business. Possibly in place of actual bonus or something. It's like, hey, you can have a pizza party instead. Which of course employees would always want over, actual money or anything. This is fairly common on a Friday. Or it's a bunch of executives sitting around doing some blue sky thinking. And deciding they need some pizza to fuel their brainstorming. Okay, I'll take that one afterwards. It's got a £5 order a couple of miles after that. All right, mate. How's it going?
Oliver from Fruit.
Huh?
Oliver from
That's
Fruit,
the one,
yeah.
yeah. There you go, sir.
Spot on,
Have a good one.
You too, mate.
All right, let's go on to this next order. This is a £5 order, paying £2. Well, following on from my previous video where I talked about Uber Eats, Just Eat, Deliveroo being in a bit of trouble with the government, once they discovered that quite a lot of people were put up in sort of hotels for asylum seekers are working on these platforms. I found lots of bags and bikes which were clearly being used for this, because asylum seekers not supposed to work until their sort of visas have been, their applications have been sorted out. And again, saw in the news that the police are sort of cracking down on these illegal riders, and they started to arrest a few of them. And so a few people asked me about this, because I worked on these, they knew I worked on these platforms and delivered for them, what I thought about it. So I thought I'd share with you my thoughts. I can't imagine anything more divisive than immigration, of course, and I will likely alienate, annoy people on both sides, depending on, where your views on this land. Just to let you know in advance, I do kind of skew left in my politics. I like to think they're based in reality and real life experiences, but you may want to switch off now if you feel that things I'm going to say are going to just make you angry. I think unfortunately on YouTube there's way too many people saying things designed specifically to make people feel angry. That's not my intention here. And in classic sort of Facebook relationship style, it is complicated and it is quite sort of nuanced to discuss this. And I know that's not always something people really want on social media. They want something punchy and definitive and, this is the answer. I'm not sure I've got that. I'm not an expert on this. But I do have a perspective, obviously, working on Deliveroo and Uber Eats and these various other platforms. Anyhow, I'll pick up this order and then we'll sort of launch into this, stupidly or not. We'll see how it goes. Hi there. Got an order for... Thank you so much. So, I suppose the sort of questions are, what do I think about these illegal workers on these platforms, and whether the government should be cracking down on this kind of thing. The problem with people working illegally on the platform is that it's creating a whole sort of underworld of sort of criminal activity associated with it, because essentially those people who are working illegally on the platform are essentially renting accounts from people who have legitimate accounts, and then they rent them out to asylum seekers and refugees and legal immigrants, and take a bit of a slice from that, whether that's 20-30% or whatever. I think from what I understand 20% seems to be the standard, but I imagine there are varying figures on that one. Now that kind of thing, obviously it does need to stop, just because, and this is not sort of an anti-immigration thing, this is more sort of a safety and security issue, is that it's really causing danger for the people who are doing this work. They're being forced to work under, ridiculously demanding circumstances to try to make, the bare minimum, even sub-minimum wage. If someone's taken off 20-30% from your salaries from your fees that you're getting, and if you've watched any videos of mine or any other delivery drivers, you know that you're not earning a huge amount. It can be as low as £9-10 an hour in the quieter times. So imagine people are then top slicing that as well. Just how much these people are going to have to work to earn, a pittance is ridiculous, and it's probably likely going to lead to them working much longer hours than they should. They're likely to take shortcuts, concentration, more likely to have accidents. And you've probably seen, there is some, quite dodgy driving among a lot of the delivery cyclists, especially. Because I know there are some people who think that these delivery drivers are somehow living it large, earning all this money, but I think any delivery driver will tell you that is not the case. Even if you're not having 20% sliced off, you're not earning a huge amount. So, hello. Is that for
Parmesan chicken in Calice?
Prem Kumar? That's the one, yeah. Thank you. And I think it's the platform's responsibility, so Deliveroo, Just Eat, Uber Eats, to do more to make it difficult for people to work illegally on these apps. They have started to try to do that kind of thing, doing more what they call face verification, where every few hours or whatever you have to take a picture of your face and it checks it against the records. And until now I think that was easy to get around. If you were renting an account, you just had to sort of meet the owner of the account once a day and do it, or when you needed it verified, you just call them and go and meet them, assuming they were kind of reasonably close by. But I think they are trying to do it more often now to make that more of a sort of a painful process. So I think they are steps towards that. I think Deliveroo especially do this thing called substitution, where technically I can let any other person work on my account and earn money on it, but I am responsible for checking that they are legally entitled to work here in the UK. So they just offload responsibility onto other people, or onto the account holder. And obviously again that's massively open to abuse. I think my solution would be to let asylum seekers work while they're having their application processed, because at least then they'll be taxed, the companies will be taxed, we'll get money sort of legally coming back into the system. I think at the moment so much of the money is just disappearing because everything's sort of under the table. And I know this may not be a popular view, that they should be allowed to work, but there is still a demand for this stuff. And as you might see by looking around at the drivers and riders who come and deliver your stuff, it's not the white British guys and girls doing this. So this sort of notion that illegal immigrants are sort of stealing locals' jobs is I think a little bit misguided and ill-conceived. Where are you going, mate? Oh, you just decided to go over there, are you? Not going to indicate. Oh, okay. So, you know, people are always saying, well, are you pro-immigration? Are you anti-immigration? And I don't know if those are the right terms in which to view this. I think it's more about, you know, what immigration policy is going to work. Immigration is always going to exist, always has. But what policy is going to make it so it's possible for people to have, you know, fair wages, fair rights, and that it doesn't disadvantage any particular group in society. And I know that's it's an impossible dream to chase, but it's something to work towards. And all right, let's get off to this second order. Yes, it's literally just around the corner. Fuck you. Oh dear. He had a bit of trouble, that guy, didn't he? All right, mate, how are you? There you go, sir. Thank you. Have a great day. I got another order from a Chinese restaurant not far from here. It's like a £3.5 order. Got about 2 miles.
This number?
Yeah, that's the one. Thank you. All right, let's get off to this one. It's only 1.5 miles. You know, and I know there's a kind of a prevailing view about these immigrants working on these platforms that they're just a bunch of, you know, scheming, benefit frauding criminals who are there to, you know, cheat as much money out of the UK system as they possibly can. But I don't know, I don't really see that. I mean, yeah, that may be going on, I don't know. But certainly the ones I've met doing this, and I'm sure, you know, a percentage of the ones I've met are working illegally. They just seem sort of super stressed out and super overworked doing this. And like I said, they can't be earning a huge amount from it. So I don't think they're kind of living at large, as some people would have it. If you think that, I urge you to sort of come and do this job for a bit and try to see if you can make your fortune and retire on the money you earn from this. I think the problem is when you see all this stuff on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, it's always the people at the extremes. It's always the kind of the protests and the sort of angry mobs on both sides, sort of chanting each other and shouting at each other, and those people just, you know, if you're on the left, you look at the kind of the thuggery of those on the right and you know, generalize about everyone who, you know, has any kind of anti-immigration stance. People on the right look at the kind of Antifa Jeremies who, you know, dressed in their sort of black ninja outfits, and I think the vast majority of us are kind of in that sort of, you know, we're not at those extremes, we're in the middle somewhere. We understand that there's a need for better immigration policy, but we also understand that, you know, it's a reality, and, you know, we find ways to live reasonably peacefully and coexist together and find points of commonality between us, regardless of your background or skin color or religion. And, you know, and on a day-to-day basis, I think that really does happen. I know there are obviously issues in certain parts of the country, in certain parts of cities, but I think doing this job, I've sort of seen that, you know, you go into a lot of communities and, you know, there are different people, different colours, different races, and they're all sort of shopping in the same places and eating in the same restaurants, and it's not this tense, fraught, hate-filled community that sometimes it's portrayed as. Oh, hi, is it? Hi there, how are you? So I just might give you a call. There you go. Thank you. Have a great day. Alright, so you can kind of see there possibly what sort of money they might be earning for the first hour on a Friday lunchtime, which is normally a pretty good time. I made 15 quid. So if someone was taking 20-30% of that, you can kind of work it out yourself. You'll be down to 11-12 quid possibly. If I only earned 10 quid, I'll be down to about 8 quid. So it's not, it's not crazy money, is it? Let's be honest. Alright, just got another order come in from Deliveroo. This is a £3 order, but going a very short distance, so £3 something for probably a mile or so. I think the other thing about earnings potential for people working illegally is that most of them are going to be on e-bikes, just because it's easier to work on an e-bike because you don't have to submit too much documentation. But I think with e-bikes you're very limited in how far you can actually go. So most people working on e-bikes tend to be based in like a city or town centre, and then doing sort of short 2 to 3 mile orders, students, things like that within the town centre. And it's a very oversaturated market, and you can kind of see them when you go into certain places. They're all bunched together outside certain restaurants, streets, waiting for orders. I'm perhaps lucky in that I'm on a moped, I can go a bit further, I can situate myself outside the city centre, and I can pick up a lot of better, longer orders just by being on a moped. So again, I suspect for a lot of them, they're not even earning 10, 11 quid an hour. It might be even less than that, as there's just so many riders sort of competing for the same orders. Alright, let's go pick this up. Cheers, mate. Alright, let's get to this one. It's literally it's about half a mile. I'm treating themselves on a Friday lunchtime. Alright, mate, there you go, buddy. Have you got your code? Yeah, 27. Thank you so much. Alright, gonna order straight in. It's another burger place. It's another short little order. Again, maybe someone treating themselves on a Friday lunchtime to a sneaky burger. Don't blame them. See if you have any comments about immigration, but particularly about the sort of the issue of immigrants working illegally on these platforms. And add your comments below. So I think these are quite complex, nuanced discussions. Maybe a YouTube comment section on a food delivery vlog is not the best place to conduct this, but there we go. So I hope it can be done in a reasonably considered and civil way. Well, my buddies, fellow moped delivery driver boys. Alright, mate, you got that one. Cheers, mate. Hey, come on. Cheers, got it. Let's go off to this one. Again, just going about a mile. So we're getting a bit over 3 quid for 1.5 miles. I like these little nippy short orders. All right, buddy. There you go, mate. Cheers. You get your code?
Code's 51.
51. Cheers. Have a good one. That feels like a nice way to spend a sort of a Friday lunchtime, just pottering about between burger joints and people working from home, giving them their treats. Cheers, mate. There you go. All right, 1.5 miles to this one. It'll take 5 minutes or so. I'm enjoying this. I mean, it doesn't always equate to, you know, better earnings, but doing a lot of these little quick orders for sort of 3-4 quid, it always feels like you're making more money than doing a longer order for a bit more money. Go on, buddy. Oh, I like those. Those kind of three-wheeler things. I think they count as cars. So technically, you can drive one without even having a motorbike license, regardless of the power of it. Don't think they're that expensive either. All right, mate. Does that count as a car? It does. Wow. Is this for you? Yeah. Oh, okay. No problem. I mean, if he gives you the code, I could just do it with you. 76. Okay, cool.
I knew as soon as you pulled up, I was like, where's it going? Thank you so much.
Cheers. That looks like some of the students are getting picked up by the parents. All right, let's see if I can pick up one more order. Get us up to about 30 quid. That's a decent little lunchtime shift. And that should set me up nicely for this evening when I go out for on a Friday evening, which is normally the real bumper time. It's the big earner. Well, I didn't get any more orders in. Rode around for a little bit, but nothing seemed to happen. You sometimes hit that when you reach about 2 o'clock on an afternoon. Most sort of the lunchtime orders are dried up, and it's a bit too early for the dinner orders. So I think I'm going to head off home. Apologies for whack you over the head with a bit of a heavy subject on a Friday. Immigration, but you know, I think it's definitely one worth talking about. And I think it can be done in a reasonably sort of calm and measured way, and doesn't have to be pistols at dawn.